You know, you might think this is a regular steel guitar rig, but that ain't. Tweed Pro, Blackface 64 Twin Reverb in tandem. Sounds great, don't it, Eddie?
That's some winter.
Mm.
It's that old iron.
Old iron, man. How many 6L6s total do you have here? Let's see.
We got 2 in the tweed, and then what? 4 is the twins.
4 in the twin.
Yeah.
That's a total of about 120 watts of tube power, Eddie.
Yeah.
I got 2 Eddies here.
Sure is.
120 watts of steel power?
120
Yeah,
watts.
buddy.
2 12s and a 15.
Yeah, buddy.
And then we got appropriate period correct power.
That's right. That's right. Damn. It just... I can hear you better back here.
Yeah.
We got plenty of back throw, because I'm standing right here. And I can hear you better. It's fuller sounding with both amps.
I just thought, I don't want to blast you and Jed, I like to be sort of courteous, but, the sibilance,
Yes,
cutting through,
no
that
doubt.
that does help.
Did you notice a major uptick in your sessions calls since you were on that homeschooling show last?
Well, I mean, this week has been great. I will say that. I haven't slept.
Yeah, I'm sure the phone's ringing off the hook.
Oh, man.
What city we in, Eddie?
We're in Spartanburg, right?
Spartanburg.
South Carolina.
Does this kind of remind you of a hotel ballroom, kind of?
Yeah, like, the ballroom in The Shining?
Yeah,
When Jack
it's kinda
Nicholson
like that.
goes in
Yeah.
there, and like the way
like
the
that.
ceiling is
Yeah.
with the arch.
This thing is full of Fender amps. Ebo put new tubes in Jed's Vibrolux today, didn't you?
No.
You didn't? Or old tubes? Or recent tubes? You even got a tube glove.
Beautiful old
Ooh.
Tunstall
5881.
5881s. Not those Ruski ones, the real ones.
These are the ones you want. Let's see a close-up of it. Hold that thing right there. Glass pussy. Damn. How much is that thing worth?
I haven't sent him an invoice yet, so.
What do you think? $100? $200? Something like
Around
that.
there.
Around there.
Yeah.
Hard to find these days?
Hard to find good ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard
But
to find good ones.
Ebo, as you guys may know, being the amp wizard that he is, has a pretty amazing cachet of tubes.
No, I don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he doesn't have any tubes. And sometimes when I go over there, he never auditions tubes for me.
Never.
Never. And tubes don't really make a difference at all in the way an amp sounds. So
No, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone through the process of sitting with an amazing amp guy like Ebo and auditioning different tubes in your amps?
No, I've never done that.
Man, it's amazing.
Yeah. Today
What
was
a-
an eye-opener, though.
What a difference they really make,
Yeah.
And then,
It's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the tubes they make now are way better than all the old tubes, right?
They are superior. Just go to Guitar Center. They know their shit.
Yeah, they are.
They will never steer you wrong.
So regarding tubes, how many companies left still make them?
There's a bunch in Asia,
Yeah,
China specifically.
yeah.
Russia has a couple.
Of all the new tubes, what's your favorite in general?
JJ.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, they generally sound good and they're as consistent as anything.
Yeah. Is there any particular brand of new tube that you absolutely loathe,
Loathe?
would never use?
Just a pet peeve. Like, I'm not a fan of the Mullards
Oh.
and the tongue saws,
Right. Far cry
the
from
Russian
originals.
ones.
Yeah,
because anytime you talk about Mullards or
right,
something now, oh yeah, I got Mullards in there. Like, no, not those Mullards.
right.
The real Mullards.
The real modes.
The real,
What is
the real UK made
what is
Blackburn factory Mullards are.
Right. Those are like the 59 burst of tubes, aren't they?
Yeah, they're
Right.
great.
Um,
Yeah, they're all like mil spec. They last forever.
Right.
Just some of the best. The engineering on them is like it's the best engineering, metallurgy, everything. They were great.
Boy, we've had a few of those over the years,
Yeah,
haven't we?
yeah. You want to hear a story?
Yes, please.
I had in my old touring rig
Yeah.
when I was out playing guitar for 15-year-old girls every night.
Right.
I would load up. I had a bunch of those matchless clubman heads,
Right.
a rack, and every year at Christmas we'd be off, and I'd bring the whole rig back to the shop, and I had it all full of old Muller EL34s, and I'd pull them out, clean everything, go through everything, test everything, and those Muller EL34s, I'd put 200 shows on them and drag them around North America all year long, and they would not, I'd retest them, and they would not move an inch. They had not worn at all
Damn.
from year to year touring.
Damn.
The only problem I ever had with them every now and then, just from transportation and all that, like the vibrations, sometimes they'd get microphonic or something,
Right.
just from being,
Right.
thrown in and out of trucks. But
God,
but electronically, like, they were as fresh after a year of touring.
man.
I just pop them back in and come back next Christmas.
You think some of the reason that some of those amazing late 60s records, guitar records sound as good is because they were playing through Marshalls with fresh Mullers that were the primo tubes of the day? Like,
That helped. Well, just in general, like they're all tubes. The Americans, the GE stuff, all that, they were all just made to a much higher standard
Right.
than they are now, because
guitar
back
players-
then this is what worked best, and this is how you built them, so you just did that, and it didn't matter if you were dumping 1 million gallons of arsenic in the Ohio River.
Right.
Now they're a little more touchy about that.
Right. Slightly more.
But no, I mean, just it was also, I could keep going, but
Well, do you have an extra tube supply out here in case something goes wrong with all these amps?
yes,
How many tubes would you typically carry around extra?
I'm just I'd carry at least a pair or quad of everything you're using.
Right.
Some 6V6s,
Right.
6L6s.
Right.
Yeah, and then a few preamp tubes. Generally it's not. If everything's good to start with, unless something gets damaged, you're good.
What's
most of the time.
the coolest power amp tube that no one ever uses?
I'm not gonna say.
Ah, okay. Just keep that secret. What about those? What are those tubes that I love in those little Valcos? 7891s.
Oh, the
What are they
6973.
6973.
Yeah, those are great.
Those are great, aren't they?
Those are awesome. And unfortunately, nobody makes one. Like, New Sensor they make one that will work, and they label it as a 6973, but it's not. If you look at the plate structure and everything, it's a totally different tube. It just happens to work in
I
that,
see.
like, same pin out and everything. But yeah, nobody, and they should. Like, is somebody making a real one? I don't think so.
I don't know.
They ought to.
What other amps use those? Just besides those Valcos, anybody?
Tons of Valco. Magnetone.
Oh, okay.
Use those in some amps. But yeah, Valco used them. Their big, where those tubes came from was actually jukeboxes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were the jukebox tube.
Okay.
So a lot of jukeboxes used those,
I
which is
didn't know
probably
that.
why Valco, they were abundant and cheap.
Yeah.
Just happened to sound good.
Jed's a big fan of those as well.
They're
He
great.
loves those tubes.
They're great.
So,
All right.
what's the weirdest tube that you still have to sometimes worry about finding, that are really hard to get,
Ooh.
that you still have to find?
Those are hard to find.
Yeah.
I mean, good ones, like actual new old stock
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
They're tough to find.
What's that OC tubes or something what's that?
Oh, like the regulator tubes that they used in the Leslies and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are out there. They're not like abundant, but there's not a huge demand for those either, because they're not,
Are the days still? Can you still buy massive collections of tubes like you used to be able to do in the old days?
Yeah.
Like from TV repair guys and shit.
Yeah. There's still, the government, the military, they still have just gaggles of them,
Right.
stored.
Right. So there's no shortage, really.
I mean, they're a finite resource.
Right.
They're not making any more of them, and once they,
Right.
you use them up and you throw them away.
Are guitar players
But-
really the only musicians? The only people really left that use tubes? Is anyone
Hi-fi.
else? Hi-fi.
Hi-fi. There's still the military
Right.
still has redundant
Okay.
tube systems.
Okay.
They always have. The thing about in guidance, communication, stuff like that, any solid state stuff, silicone junctions, transistors or ICs, chips, all of that stuff, as soon as you zap them with radiation, they're done.
Oh.
Okay. Whereas vacuum tubes, I mean, if you had a way to manage the heat and everything, you could run a tube amp in a nuclear reactor.
Wow.
They're not affected by radiation.
Love it, yeah.
So if, say there was a nuclear incident of some sort and
Right.
all your communications were knocked out, a tube circuit would still work.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
the military has always used, for redundancy,
Right.
they've always used, tubes for a lot of that stuff.
Right. Has the prices of tubes just gone up and up and up and up, or is they still kind of what they were?
Yeah, they've gone up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've gone up. There's a lot of stuff that's just it's just hard to find just because like I used to just like old Mullard, 12AX7s,
68.7 and shit.
stuff
all
like
that,
I used to. Yeah, I used to just hunt those all day long, and that's what I did at night on the bus. Instead
Right.
of partying, I would
Right.
be in my bunk buying tubes, and every time
Yeah.
I'd stop home, I'd have a stack of boxes.
Yeah. So how many, like, out of 10 new old stock old tubes that you buy, if you're just doing your average eBaying,
Yeah.
how many will be bad?
You got to kind of know what to look for before you buy them.
Yeah.
Just a real easy one is just the silver shit inside the bottle.
Yeah.
It's called the getter.
Yeah.
You can look at that right away, and you can kind of tell, if it's worn, if it's brown instead of silver,
Yeah.
if it's like worn down to just a little disc at the top of the tube instead of,
And then the black rings.
that's a pretty good, it's a pretty good
yeah.
sign that tube is, seen
Good.
some action.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Have you
just-
ever paid a fortune for a tube and it was bad, and you couldn't get your money back and all that?
Let me think. I mean, I've had some that like really just didn't test good enough to
Yeah,
use,
right.
but I try to buy, I'll look and see if they're tested before I buy them.
Right.
That's
Right. So the testing really does work, because a lot of people think that the testing doesn't
Yes
matter.
and no. Most tube testers that people use, they just kind of test whether the tube functions or not,
Right.
but not really, like I've got at the shop, I've got a triplet 3444A laboratory tube analyzer, which is
Yeah.
this magnificent contraption, and you can really get into the specific operating characteristics of the tube and really see
Right.
what's going on in there.
Right, because it kind of works it.
Yeah, the
Right.
the gas strength of the
Yeah.
vacuum, and
Yeah.
you can measure any of the usual parameters. A lot of tube testers, consumer grade tube testers from back in the day, they would just tell you whether it was good or bad, and sometimes they would tell you they were bad just so they could go sell you more tubes.
Yeah.
The drugstore ones.
Right. Right.
But no, if you just look for stuff that is tested somehow, then you at least know if it works or not.
Yeah. Were the conditions they were stored in pretty crucial?
Not really.
No, okay.
No.
So they could
not
be
really.
cold and shit. And
Yeah,
that,
it doesn't really matter. I bought. In fact, I've been in the Everbs that I produce.
Right.
For the last year or so, I've been shipping as the stock tube for the reverb driver in there. I bought a bunch of old Russian military 6v6s,
Okay.
and they are built.
Yeah.
They're like brick shithouse tubes.
Yes.
They're not the usual, consumer grade Russian stuff. These were
Right.
Russian military
Nice.
tubes. Bought a bunch of like sealed cartons of 50, and those things, I'm sure they'd been sitting somewhere over there.
Right.
I mean, like late 60s, early 70s production codes on them.
Wow.
And they'd been sitting God knows where for decades. And they are just, I pull them out and they're just, the
Sure.
box is all shitty and, it's got,
Yeah.
got nuclear fallout all over it.
Yeah.
But no, you pop those tubes out and they're
Damn.
just rocking. They're
What
good
are,
as new.
what are the most overrated tubes that people pay a lot of money for that you think are worth that don't really that aren't as good as the value?
Boy, good question.
Maybe there isn't any.
I don't know. I mean, generally, you kind of get what you pay for.
Yeah. If you
I don't think.
if you were gonna if you could go back in time and have your pick of any tubes brand new in the box, and you were gonna outfit a deluxe reverb with the most awesome tubes, what would you put in it? This is what I'm dying.
See,
to hear.
here's where we say this, and then all of a sudden they get hard to find.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
the best, in my opinion, like if you're looking for, I mean, I got a whole shitload of them, so that's okay. The best, like new old stock 6v6s
Yeah.
were the tongue saw, the 6v6 GTs and GTAs.
Okay.
The tongue saw, not the new Russian ones,
Right.
the old USA ones.
Yes.
Man,
Great.
just unbelievable. They
Yeah.
last forever.
Right.
They last forever, and they sound just magical.
What about preamp tubes?
Black plate RCAs,
Yeah.
most overrated.
Oh, I see.
Most overrated.
Yeah, I
Black
see.
plate RCAs.
Okay.
They're all right.
Yeah.
They're okay, but they are like. Seems like the guys that pay $300-400 for a pair of black plate RCA. It's like. I was gonna say something mean. I won't say something mean.
I get you.
But they're okay. They're known for their breakup or whatever. But nah.
What about preamp tubes? Are they? Or would you go with tongue saws as well?
Tongue saws are great. Those are very underrated.
Okay.
Because the tongue saw, the long plate tongue saw 12AX7s, just had big elephant nuts.
Hey, buddy.
What's going on?
How you doing? We're
Rick
doing
Bass.
we're doing a tubetorial.
Oh, new
tubes.
tubes.
Tubetorial. I just made that word up.
Tubetorial.
Talking about we
Yeah.
just went through everything. I asked him what the most overrated and underrated tubes are, and his old the old amps.
Console?
The new
Yeah.
tongue saws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're bullshit.
Yeah.
Same as everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the new old stock tongue saws, the long plate tongue saw 12AX7s, just huge, big moose nuts.
Yes.
They're a great tube. Problem is they tended to go microphonic because they had the big plates. So sometimes you got to weed through them to find the quieter ones, but they sound great.
Yeah.
Really, totally underrated.
Beautiful.
You know, I love personally like the Mullard,
Yeah.
the British Mullard,
Yeah.
12AX7s,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, 7025,
Right.
UCC 83s, whatever. They're just.
You know all
100%.
those. You know all those substitutions by heart, don't you? All of them. That's amazing. What tube has the most names, like different
Oh.
substitution names?
It's a good question. The most common tubes, like those, tended to have the most variance.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's there are a ton of there would be industrial part numbers. In that case, the 7025 would be kind of the industrial part number. But then you've got military numbers too. A lot of times it was you'd have a big string of numbers for basically the same tube.
And it would all just be a 6L6 or 6V6. Yeah.
They would do a lot of things too, like sometimes they would just change the pin out
Yeah.
to create a new tube, so you would have to buy,
Okay.
oh, you got to buy these instead,
Right.
because they were selling tubes.
Right.
So a lot of times you had the same guts in a different tube. The 7027 is a good example of that. A lot of Ampegs use those,
Yeah.
and they're just they're the Phillips STR 6L6s with a different pin out.
Yeah. Okay.
But
But you couldn't put a regular.
you have to
Phillips in
change the
there.
wiring on the
I
tube
see.
socket.
I see. I got you.
So it's the same guts, just
Right. I see.
different pin
Okay.
out.
Yeah. Why did they do that? Just to get people to buy more shit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
What's the
think so.
worst? Last question, and we'll go have some lunch or dinner. What is the worst tube that any major amp manufacturer ever used? Like worst type of tube?
Oh.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Do you?
I think I do, but I'm gonna wait. and see.
7591s?
I think that's the ones that blonde Fenders use for a minute.
Oh yeah, they use those for just a
Yeah.
second. They
And
use
they
those,
suck, didn't they?
but
What were they called?
those the 7591s.
Yeah.
They a lot of Ampegs, like the late 60s, early 70s Ampegs would use those. Some other oddball amps, you see them now and then. They're great little tubes for like for hi-fi. You'll see them in the Dynaco and Scott hi-fi
Yeah,
amps, and they're great for that because they're very linear. They're small, but they're very linear, and they can they'll give you a lot of horsepower for a small tube. But they just sound like shit for guitar.
Right. Like there's a brief moment where they made blonde bass ones with those, right? Or was it a Tremolux or?
No, it was the Showmans and Twins.
Right,
Had
right.
those for just a second.
Yeah.
In fact, I've never even I knew a guy that had one.
Yeah.
I've never actually seen one,
Yeah.
but I know they existed. And there was another weird ass tube that I've seen pictures where they
6BQ5 or something like that.
No, the Tremolux
Yeah.
had 6BQ5 is
Right.
a EL84.
Okay. Right.
That's the American
Okay. I see.
number, and the white Tremolux used those for just a minute.
Right.
And I've got one of those.
Yeah. Those are cool, right?
They're gnarly.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the voltage was way too high for that tube, so they didn't last long.
And there is a particular small Ampeg, like the Mike Campbell amp, that everyone covets in a particular tube configuration. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, is it the Gemini? No, not a Gemini. A Reverb Rocket that has a certain tube that everyone thinks is rare and cool.
I don't
I'm
know
imagining
what
that.
Mike uses.
Does he play through an Ampeg or something? I think he does.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's got one particular one that he
Okay.
grooves on.
Yeah.
I've got a really early Reverb Rocket with 6v6s.
Right.
And that was a very short-lived thing, and they went to the 7591s
Right.
after a
Okay,
while. And they're all right, but
yeah,
they're not. They don't sound as good.
Cool.
Yeah, the really early ones with 6v6s. I mean, they sound like a friggin' Tweed Deluxe with the best reverb on earth.
Right. Right. Well, thanks for teaching us about tubes.
Yeah, man.
So I hope I didn't
Tubes
keep you
are
here too
awesome.
long.
I
Tubes
love
are fun,
tubes.
aren't they?
I
Yeah.
was gonna give everybody a little. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. You can find them. best bang for the buck. The 7581As, made mostly by GE back in the day. They're like 606 GC on steroids.
Damn.
They're built like a friggin' tank, and they sound amazing. And
Say it one more time, 7581A?
7581A. Yeah, they're magnificent. Tungsol made them too, but mostly GE, and
Yeah.
they're if you want like the best American 6L6, get you a pair of those.
That's it.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of them. You might have seen me. You might have seen these around. A lot of them came in. You never saw this. They had a pink base.
Damn.
It was like this funny
Wow.
pink phenolic base.
Damn.
Can't miss it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Oh, all right.
They're really
okay.
cool tubes. Pink
Damn.
base with red writing on them.
All right.
It's great tubes.
I wish we had one here to show the kids.
I know.
All right.
Maybe when we get back home, I'll
Right.
send you a picture.
All right. Beautiful. Thanks, Ebo. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, pal.
All right.